Welcome back to the Mom Podcast. And today we're really excited. We got Jason Hughes, who's the lead creator, mastermind behind Mooncast. We're going to be talking about all the amazing updates since Milestone 2. And we're going to be looking at a lot of new footage. So make sure you watch the whole thing. Of course, react in the comments and all that good stuff. So, Jason, what's been the big tech lift since Milestone 2?
Where to start? You're being super generous. We are a small team, and one of the things I'll point out is that everything we're doing is first pass. Like everything is first pass. So once we get something working, we just move on. Like we're not going to keep playing with it and tune it and make it perfect. It's just get something in, then keep moving, because we can always come back and do that. But yeah, the big stuff for us. Milestone 3, we have a whole bunch of new art. Gloria Mars killed it on 3D trees, and she built some buildings and fish, and she made some more characters. That's art. Maxi actually built a whole zone where you can run around, and it's approximately to scale. We built out a whole bunch of the rendering pipeline and set up a lot of our post effects, and we're just tuning stuff. But it's definitely starting to show some promise. And let's see. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's invisible, like nobody will ever know it's there. But one of the cool things that we got going, we were talking to a bunch of the guys in the community, and people were saying, you know, we'd love to be a little bit more Web3 in some way or another. And I was talking with the guys at Deep, and you know, I bought one of their boxes, and I'm looking for it in the mail every day. And this DeepN project is interesting because it means that we could actually let people run some of our gameplay zones as nodes. And although it's not currently set up for other people to run it, we have it set up now so that our server set is now a cluster that we run, and then a whole bunch of zones that are run externally from it. And that wasn't the way that I've done stuff in the past, but that was actually a huge amount of work, and now we theoretically could support nodes, but we're not to the point where we want to do anything with that. It's more like make it work, make it stable. We have blockchain contracts that are now fully deployed on the base chain, and we actually, that's the main thing that we were testing on the Milestone 3 was to get people in and actually interact with the chain and make sure that our contract worked, and make sure that you could link in with your, right now it's all set up for mobile. So you have to have a mobile wallet, and then you can interact with it. And we fixed some bugs because of that, which was great. We built out a really simple stat system. So you now have stamina and health. And we built a little bit of really basic harvesting. So you could walk up to something and just, I think for items, you just pick up the item. For things like trees, you'd have to beat the tree to death, and then it would give you something. I don't think it gives you anything yet. So we really don't have everything completely wired up. But I think one of the biggest things that we got, though, is the super flexible ability to describe a character for other people to see, so over the network. And what we can do now is you can equip items that give you new equipment slots. So you could do amazing stuff, like you put on a belt, and now you have a belt loop, you can put a sword in it. And you could also put, you know, a different kind of belt on that has several consumable slots, like you could put health potions or other kind of potions. So then you have choices to make. And by allowing you to do those kinds of things, we can unlock a whole bunch of cool gameplay. So we're trying to get all these things kind of in the game so that we can just like test it out, make sure that it works, and fix bugs, because there's lots of them. But that's kind of the big stuff. We do have a merch site, which was a surprise. Stacy, my SO, she took that on herself and made all of her merch actually available up on Etsy and on Amazon. So that and website updates. But yeah, there's a lot of work that goes on outside of the game to make the game.
Love it. A few questions. One is, let me start with a comment. I think what you guys are doing around just trying to build as much as possible first pass and just keep going, and then we'll refine later is a great approach. Sometimes like the last, and you know this probably better than I do, certainly on games, but with a lot of things, the last 5% can take as much time as the first 95 sometimes, like depending how perfectionist you want to be, it can just double, triple the amount of time, right? So is that why you guys are just, hey, let's just keep building function, maps, art, and then we'll fine tune and refine later?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The worst thing we can do is over polish something. And I had this great argument in my head, but I wasn't going to have it out loud. Where it was like, should we make a couple of things that are just fantastic and amazing, or should we just do all the things that show where we're going? And the simplest thing is just show where we're going, because that'll give people a better idea of what the game is. It's super hard to, like, say for example, the character movement that we have in Mooncast. I think it looks really good for where we are. I think it's better than a lot of games that ship, but it's not perfect. And there are some AAA games that have put millions of dollars into making their character look perfect, and we can't compete with that. We just can't. We don't have the time. We don't have the money. And later, if we do have the time and the money, that's when we compete with them. So it's important for us to realize what our limitations are and double down on the things we can do. And right now, we have 3 engineers. We can build a lot of gameplay that way.
Question. I want to ask you both this question, and I'll start with you, Jason. I mean, so stamina and health, pretty basic. My question is, do you see adding more to the dashboard? Do you feel like more other elements could be added, or do you feel that's enough?
Well, the longer term, there's going to be a ton of stats, but the stats are, I hope, largely invisible. I don't want the game to feel really complicated, but if you look at the way that Valheim does their health system, you eat food and you can have, like, I think it's 3 slots worth of active food, and then the food goes away whenever it's been consumed, and it helps you heal up. I think we're going to aim somewhere like that. It may not be exactly that way, but we'd like to have ways for you to heal yourself. Right now, stamina is a way for us to let you do things, and some things take more stamina than others. We're never going to say you can't do something, but we will say it hurts you a lot if you do. So there's reasons for that, and they're more technical than anything else. But we don't want to say, well, I want to swing a sword, but I have to send a message to the server to find out if I have enough stamina to do that, right? So giving you a bit more immediate feedback and giving you that feeling like I just did the thing that I asked to do the thing, it's just better that way. Like the user experience is cleaner.
Do you
But
see
there's
stamina just naturally, maybe slowly regenning, or you could use food and potions to boost it up faster? Can you give us kind of your current vision around health and stamina?
Sure. I feel like stamina is going to be that thing that's like, I'm going to exceed the normal bounds of a person. Like, or I am going to sprint and I'm going to jump and I'm going to do all the things that are heroic. And when you run out of stamina, that's when you start to run low on, like, whatever it is that keeps you going, you know? So having stamina be that thing, and you could calm down and it'll regenerate, you know?
Okay.
So that's, I don't want people to be forced into, like, you don't have to go back to town necessarily to get more stamina. You can certainly have food, you could certainly have potions, you could certainly cast magical spells on each other and or on yourself. And of course those are all stats that you can manipulate depending on how our combat evolves. There may be situations where you can play like the black deck from Magic the Gathering, where you're trading life in order for you to do more damage, or, you know, that could exist. I don't know, but what we definitely want to do is make it so that the underpinned system exists and is flexible enough that we can support those things. For now, what I wanted to get in is, let's have stamina so that as it gets lower, it doesn't really matter. But once you get below a threshold, you start trailing off health. And when you get really low, you start trailing off health faster. So it basically is this break on you doing heroic things continuously, and it hurts you. So you have the ability to be heroic, but you got to kind of meter yourself. if everybody runs into combat and is just slicing, slashing, and doing your combos constantly, then everybody's going to be paying that penalty. And maybe that works for you if you can finish combat quickly. But I feel like that's not very interesting from a gameplay perspective. Like, what decision do you have? Just keep clicking, or do I sometimes want to hold back and then strategically choose when to use it?
When combat, I mean, I'm assuming that's a huge system. When you guys see combat and creatures be, testable?
Oh man. So we haven't started AI. We haven't started any NPC behaviors, nothing. I want all of those things, but Eric Tuvey has been the guy who I fully expect is going to want to write all that code, and he's been doing blockchain contracts this whole time. So I can't say it's going to be soon. The mechanics are already starting to show. Like, we already have the ability to swing a sword. You have the ability to do combos, which we need to do more work on that system, clearly. But being able to swing a sword and then swing it rapidly and then do a different move and then do a different move, those are all going to be based on your mastery. So as you get better with a sword, you'll be able to follow up your first swing with a second swing rapidly. And those will do slightly different damage and have slightly different effects. So you need mastery. And eventually that probably will be where we have, if we have branching combo capabilities, that's where it would be. Like, I choose this because I am now leveling up and that kind of thing. So I think that we will probably end up in PvP before we end up in PvE, largely because we'll have players before we have NPCs. So, and that's a bit of a departure from what I think people were expecting. But if we can get combat in the game, there's no reason for you not to run around and smack other people. And I think that's just a whole lot of fun. And we'll learn a lot about how combat does and doesn't work well.
Yeah, I've got 2 requests as far as movement, movement request. One is ninja rolls, just for coolness, hit N and do a ninja roll. Pretty cool. The second one, like, to me, one thing that I trained for a long time, and hand-to-hand combat, we did knife, we did, bladed weapons and things. And the guy I trained with was really big on the Spanish circle, which was a style of fighting that supposedly was almost impossible to beat. And it was all about kind of circulating around the target, doing circles, and instead of the kind of that linear up and down, right, left movement. And I'd always wanted to see that in a game. But back to you, Grill. I'm curious, you're a big MMORPG player. You've been for a long time. What stats do you like? For you, is health and stamina enough? Like, what's your dream list?
There's some other classic resources like mana, rage, energy. But beyond that, I think, like Jason was saying, if things get too complicated, it almost becomes kind of a bear to do things in game, where it becomes so much about managing these resources that it kind of takes away from the gameplay. And he said Valheim, which I think is a great example of a game that kept things really simple, but the feel of the game was great. You also mentioned, like, things looking perfect. Valheim was very picturesque to play, but when you zoomed in, if you looked up close on things, they were like low poly count. They weren't like super sharp or super fancy. But again, it just kind of worked. And the simplicity of that game made it feel almost like an ease to playing that game. It wasn't where everything wasn't so complex, so complicated all the time, where it became like tiresome or stressful.
Yeah, you don't want to be kind of pulled out of the world and gameplay and trying to be analyzed in the middle of a fight, right? I mean, you just want to be playing, I think.
And I've played games, like I played lots of Diablo and Path of Exile, and those games are just giant math equations, which usually comes down to just clicking a single button in the end, but you wind up doing so much outside of game just to increase your performance in game, where they can become a bit, I don't know, stressful, but like I said, tiresome. Like I feel like so much is devoted to just improving your character on a spreadsheet that you don't actually go and enjoy the game as much.
I'm in the small minority of players that love spreadsheets like Elam. But anyways, let's roll the first video. So before we do, this is I guess a huge milestone. I guess let's just watch the video and then we'll comment on it. The NFT one.
So one of the things we did is set up this buy screen so you can actually buy NFTs inside the game. That's kind of a big deal because that means we're directly talking to the chain and talking to contracts. And we're recognizing that something is already in your wallet so you can connect up. And this is kind of a big step. So in addition to that, getting this set up, I also set up the localization system and wired it in so that it's actually being used not just here but on every screen. And that it's such a boring thing to do, but by having it at all means we don't have to do it in the future, and it's easier for us to build UI in the future that will be compliant and also easy for us to translate. So it's one of those things. It's not glorious, but it needs to be done. But having both the blockchain hooks and having localization in is really helpful.
So this is the first utility for Bodhi, right? Kind of a big moment. Yeah, Jason, walk us through this.
Yeah, so I think actually there was a NFTD is a tower defense game that Timbo Slice is making, and I think he accepted Bodhi, or maybe he gives you something because there's Bodhi in your wallet. I don't think it actually took any, but yeah, I don't want to take his thunder, but yes, we are accepting a small amount of Bodhi, even though it's a large number. It's not worth that much. But we wanted to be able to test on something, and the best thing I could think of is like, well, let's give Bodhi some value, because one, almost everybody who's going to be interested in playing Mooncast, at least at this point, probably already aware of who we are and what we've been up to, and they probably already have Bodhi in their account, largely because of the airdrops, or some people may have actually purchased Bodhi to begin with. So I figured, that's maybe the path of least resistance. Little did I realize that, of course, you'd actually have to get some Ethereum onto Base if you haven't done that before. So there were some stumbling blocks, but it did work out. Most people who were jumping in already had a little bit of Bodhi, and so there was a little bit of a learning curve and having to figure out how to switch chains and things like that. But when you get into the game, the first thing you see is you have to go through a login screen, which I didn't show here, and then it asks you to buy that NFT, and that actually is transferring a small amount of Bodhi into our wallet, and then we mint on the fly a brand new NFT and put it into your wallet. And let me tell you, that is some serious ninjutsu there. And I didn't really have a full appreciation until Eric was telling me about all the things that he had to do to make that work. And a lot of it is just it's dark magic. Like, you have to spend a lot of time to figure it out, and then once you understand how it works, it's still a lot of work. But getting it all put together is hard. And I don't think there's a whole lot of games out there that directly contact the blockchain because of that. Most of them go through a browser or something like that, because it's much easier to do it that way. We did it the hard way. I mean, that's my MO. I do it the hard way.
Grill, any comments before we roll the next video?
No, I did it early, and it was pretty easy and seamless and quick. Only question, I know this might be a tough one to answer, maybe you can't answer it now, is what are the future plans for Bodhi in Mooncast?
I can answer that. We want to have a place where you can go buy loot boxes that have loot that is only specific to Bodhi. And I don't know that we're going to have Bodhi be a tradable item. Maybe it will be, I don't know. So you'll have to have gotten it, bring it into the game, and then use it. And I don't know that it's ever going to go back out. It might sit in our wallet forever. Don't know. But I'd love it if people got so excited about those items that you can't get any other way that, maybe Bodhi goes up because of it. Maybe not. We'll see.
They'll give it some unique utility at least. So
yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, let's roll the signage video, Grill.
So right now, when you launch the game, this is where you start. And, the character moves around pretty much the same way he did last time. But one of the things that we did is put him into a level and got some artwork that kind of matches our our art style, and everything's first pass. But you know, we're pretty excited about having some space where you can run around and start hooking up different parts of the game. Like we have the ability to. It seems like it's such a small thing, but being able to look at something and get a little identification plate, being able to identify things. You know, you can have signs in the game now. That's kind of awesome. And there's a lot of places to go.
Now there's some even more amazing videos coming up as far as just the art. But one of the things that blew me the most away, which I'm assuming you guys worked on, is how the depth of field is coded, where the background is a little blurry and then everything that's in front of you is in focus. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. I mean, that really adds an awesome visual feel. I haven't seen that much. Curious if you could talk about that.
Sure. It's not a very complicated effect, but it is one that if you use it in a ham-fisted way, it just feels bad. So when we first implemented these things, like there's a lot of dials and settings and switches and stuff, and you know, I could show you a couple of not good settings that a lot of people probably like. That's the default, and it looks bad. So you know, we had to crank back on some aspects of it, but not just that, but there's a bunch of different post effects in there that help kind of punch up the colors and make things feel vibrant and exciting, and you can set things in a kind of garish and cartoonish way, and we tried to find a nice balance where it felt like you're situated in the world instead of it being something that's like going through Best Buy and you see a wall of TVs, and some of the TVs will be cranked up so hot that it's just hard to look at. But when you look at it next to another TV, you're going to go with the hottest one. You know, that's not what we're going for. We don't want to have everything look just like it's cranked to 10. So
no, but it feels real. It feels more real, I should say. But Grill, any reactions to that video?
It's funny you mentioned the background because one of the first things I do usually when I play an MMO or any game where it's kind of open world is just kind of look around. And I was noticing when I was looking around in Mooncast that, you know, that it was blurry like that, but there was just enough clarity to kind of see something going on in the background where it gives you that sense of like, oh, what's over there? You know, anything that triggers that sense of adventure for me, I really love. And I think you guys like nailed it on that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Maxi did a great job. He was instrumental in putting together the zone. And although I gave him some rules, he just broke all of them, and I think it turned out really well.
Got to give the man some room to play around, right?
That's right.
Let's roll the next one, the equipment slots, which I think Jason was referring to earlier.
So some of what we've done in the past couple of months is to try out different things, like getting our level to have the correct dimensions, and just checking out what assets we can get from the asset store that are sort of close and use them as placeholders for the rest of the game. So one of the things that we have is this is actually a grass shader that Maxi built, and we have some stairs that are way too big that you have to jump up them. On here, there's a nice tent with some fishing gear on it and a sword that we can pick up. Did I get it already? Yeah, there we go. I have a short sword of justice. So, given that I have that, I want to equip it in my hand. So now I have it. So I can swing it. And there's the same sword combos we had before. So, kind of fun. But if we want to actually equip a belt, you pick up the belt, and now you've got more slots. So I can now put the sword in a slot. And we didn't have any of this before, but you can actually equip things here, or you can equip things using the number keys.
Very cool. And again, the art, there's a lot going on there. one of my questions is around mastery. I saw that in the menu, of course, McCarthy had his vision for mastery in Mirandus. What's your vision for mastery in Mooncast?
The way I'd like to do mastery is to recognize success, and mastery is repeated success. So if you're doing something like swinging a sword, for example, if you're swinging a sword out in open space, I don't know that you can really consider that a success. You might look cool, you may feel cool, but if you're not hitting a target, it doesn't really matter. So when I think about success, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to hit something and I'm going to deal some damage. And if you actually do that enough times, you'll get to the point where you deal damage better, in real life at least. So the simplest thing we can do is figure out if you were successful or not in whatever the action is that you're doing. And so that same kind of concept will carry through in crafting and in combat and whatever else that it makes sense for you to grow and have progression as a character.
Grill, reactions?
Do you have plans for mastery to decrease if you say die or fail at something?
I don't know. I think that there are many ways to punish a player for making bad decisions. I'm not sure if that's the right answer or if that's just an answer that has been used in the past. The thing we can do that I think a lot of other NFT-based games can't do is I can take things from you. And mastery is one of those things we could take, but we could also take items, we could take currency, we could take various things. So I want to leave that open for now. But it's possible you'll lose or potentially lose some levels of mastery, or you may lose some items or something like that. But I don't want to make too many firm commitments on that yet, because there's so much game to build, and I think that some decisions right now may feel wrong later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's, like you said, there's a long way to go, and opinions and views might change as you build things out. I do like the equipping things, unlocking other equipment slots. I think it gives you a lot of possibility for customization down the road.
Oh, a ton. So the reason we put that in the first place was Arturo was saying, wouldn't it be cool if you could have a helmet that had a mask slot? And I'm like, oh, crap. You know how hard that is? And then I realized that having a fishing pole, if you have to put bait on it, it's the same thing. So we have to have the ability for an item to be in your hand or equipped or whatever, and it has a sub slot on it. And once we did that, I'm like, well, let's just go 100% into that. And now you'll have a belt. The belt can have things in it. And if you want, we could make things that hang off of your belt that have slots too. So it can go as deep as we want. The head actually provides the helmet slot. And that way we can control if we ever want to, like, say, have a unicorn head or a demonic head with horns or something like that. We can say you can't have a helmet because that's the way your head is shaped, right? It just wouldn't make sense. So the helmet slot's coming from the head, not from the character.
I'll be first to line up for the unicorn head, just saying.
Do you plan on having encumbrance?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the way the inventory system is working right now is it's basically a list, and things that are equipped are put into those slots, and you can move them between slots pretty freely as long as they're of the right type. So we have tools and we have consumables, but your inventory is just a list. And that means we need to use some stats to figure out, can you carry this? And if you can carry this, how fast do you move? So it's something that we're going to have to build in relatively soon. But part of the reason we built the character controller the way we did is that you have full analog control over your speed, and we can use encumbrance to slow you down. So the decision you make as a player is, how fast do I want to run away from a monster that's chasing me, or a player or whatever. So you could decide, I'm going to be a stealthy guy, and I'm also going to run really fast. So I'm going to have very lightweight armor and just take the risk that I'm going to get damaged and maybe die. Whereas somebody could be a tank and just have super heavy armor and then be really slow, but he can take some damage. That's up to you. You make those decisions. There's no right answer, or there shouldn't be. If we do our job right, there's no right answer. We want you to make decisions and play the way you want.
Love that. Grillini, are you pumped to be a tank?
Actually, I generally, it's not that I hate it, but I feel like I'm always forced in that role. But Then again, when I ever let somebody else do it, I'm like, they're not doing it the right
You're
way.
not doing it as good as
Yeah,
you want.
exactly. So I want them doing it anyway and just complaining about it.
There you go. Let's roll video number 4.
So here we are close to the lake. He's running up here to a little fishing house. You can really see here as I'm running that the background goes from this blurry effect to being pretty clear. So it kind of focuses your attention on what's in front of you. And also, you got some little fish running around, and there's a fishing pole, so you can hit F to fish. This is just a placeholder, obviously, but you hit F and you get a fish. And what's neat is not only did you get the pop-up that says you got a fish, we now have an inventory screen that shows that you actually do have a fish. So we have inventory working now. Kind of a big deal.
So I have some questions around the buildings. You know, again, do you see that being similar to Miranda's? I mean, I think we talked a little bit about this in the past, but what's your updated vision around players building buildings, buying buildings, et cetera, doing commerce?
I really want to see players building their own and placing them where they want them. That's really high on our list. It's just going to take a little while for us to get there. I think middle of next year we're supposed to have something like that. We have to completely change the way we do terrain for it to work. But I think that's the reason. That's the reason it's difficult. Is we need to have terrain that you can claim, and it needs to know, like, is this a claimable space or not? But as soon as you can, we want to make it so that if you have a big enough space that you can put a building, we're going to probably predefine the sizes of the buildings, and you'll build the smallest building every time. And then you can expand it to be bigger, and then you can expand that to be bigger. And what makes it interesting to have a building is that preliminarily, we want to make it so that you have to clean up the land first so that you can build something there. And once you've done that, we're going to have to run a simulation over time so that the land degrades if you don't come back and do something about it. Eventually, your building collapses and then it disappears. So you lose your land claim if you don't come back and you don't play the game. And that's probably not an immediate thing. I'm sure it'll be like a month or something when you lose something. But if you don't log in for a month or so, it seems wrong to leave your space occupied in the game. So other people can come along and build things there too. What's interesting about that, though, is all you have to do is log in and clean up the weeds and upkeep the land, and then it stays yours. But anybody can do that. So it doesn't have to be you. Anybody can come over and clean up things. So what I'm hoping will happen is that people will build useful buildings. Like if you want to build a blacksmith shop, you can build a blacksmith shop. It's not necessarily just yours. You can lock the door if you want to, but other people can come in and use it if you don't, and they have to pay you for it. So you get a little passive for that, and they get to build things that they otherwise wouldn't be able to build because buildings are kind of expensive. They take a long time to put up. And those specific crafting stations also take time for you to build. So, there's a certain amount of energy required to create, and it takes a while for it to go away, but anybody can maintain it for you because they find it useful. So the idea is not that it's just your building necessarily, it's that it's in the world and people find it beneficial, and so they can do you a solid and make sure that it stays there.
Yeah, like that. So you prevent the goblin squatters from taking over.
Right.
But what's your opinion on, one thing I've always thought, like in Miranda's, for an example, you just buy the NFT, drop it, and it's built. What's your opinion on, say buying a blueprint or even finding a blueprint, but then to build it, you got to get the raw materials and then maybe craft bricks and then put them together, which is obviously great for the economy because maybe I'm just going to go buy the bricks from someone else and then put them together. Any clarity around that side of it?
I wasn't thinking so much that you would end up buying blueprints of things, but you would basically, everyone would build just kind of a box as their initial building, and then they upgrade it from there. So it's a bit more fluid, and hopefully you'd end up with more variety rather than so many kind of cookie cutters. But I mean, we haven't built any of that system yet. Largely what I'm aiming for is that almost everything is created inside the game. So you should be able to get there, and maybe what you can do is export a building as a blueprint or a bundle of a bunch of different elements that you've already created, and then, you know, trade that around, sell it, whatever, and then someone else could bring that back in. If they have land, they could put it on there.
Grill.
You kind of stole my thunder, but I was going to ask if like your future vision for building was going to be something as in depth as like a survival game such as Valheim or such.
I don't know that we want to build it quite the same way. So most of those games allow you to just arbitrarily place walls and doors and windows and things like that. That's probably a little deep for us. I mean, I'll be honest, like if Mooncast is a thing 4 years, 5 years from now, hell yeah, I'd love to do that. But I, at this point, I can say we can definitely make something that's a bit simpler and easy to get into and build and play and enjoy. And it won't take quite so long to create. Those builder systems are actually surprisingly difficult to make.
Awesome. Let's roll the small village video.
Here we are checking out a layout of a small village. Here's a harvestable. It's an oak tree. And a bunch of village assets that are kind of close to what we want, but they're good for figuring out sizes and placements of things and figuring out like how much polygon density do we really want, and is this good looking, or is this too much detail or not enough detail? What about the spacing between buildings and things like that?
Grill, go first so I don't steal any thunder.
I think that mostly kind of ties into what we were just talking about. You ever see buildings possibly being connected, like in a city? Like we have buildings, you know, literally on top of each other?
So when we were in Malta for Galaverse 2, I was blown away at how integrated a citadel is, or like the old towns that were just giant long walls with different compartments. That is such a unique way to put things together that it's, I mean, you kind of have to assume that you're going to start with that. So, you know, if we put a castle in there or a citadel or something like that, I would think that it would work differently. Like you claim a space inside of it, not so much that you build it yourself. But I don't know, maybe I think there's room for those kinds of buildings if it makes sense for them to be jammed up against each other and share walls. Then yeah, I could see that.
Medina was pretty amazing to see in person, right?
Medina was beautiful. I went back there twice. It was, I mean, there was a tea shop there that just had an amazing view, and yeah, I went there and I think I was suffering from COVID. And the only thing I could do is think I need someplace high with a lot of wind, and I want some coffee.
Yeah, Virtual Eye and another friend of ours, we walked around Medina for a couple hours. And I was really blown away by the beauty there.
Oh, it was stunning. Yeah.
What's your vision around towns, villages? Like, I mean, to me, this was one of my favorite clips. This one, another one that's coming up, but do you see that happening organically where, you know, a bunch of players or a guild say, hey, we're going to build here? Or do you see that being pre-assigned and you have to kind of go build that? And on the same note, will you guys kind of have a village built that maybe new players can kind of start in and get started and buy stuff?
The vision we have right now is there's a social zone, and that social zone is like, that's the only place in the whole game where there's no downward pressure. Like there's no wandering monsters, there's nothing dangerous. That social zone is going to be the place where people put commerce. And so there's going to be a lot of competition for it. I totally expect that. Every other zone is a little bit more dangerous, and not necessarily orders of magnitude more dangerous, but more dangerous because there are wandering monsters and there's things that you have to worry about. And, you know, I think that'll present opportunities where somebody starts their own business. They're doing crafting. They're building, bricks or wood or metal or whatever, and they've got their place in this kind of lower rent area, and they do well enough that there's a plot of land that's available in the social zone, and they can move up. So to me, I find that very interesting and appealing. I fully expect that the social zone will become very important real estate. So I think that that's interesting. What I also think is interesting is that every other place that you can go to isn't necessarily like progressionally harder. It's more that they have different things there. So you may go to a particular zone because it has harvestables you can't find anywhere else. And so you can make a business out of that. You're collecting those things, and then people in other zones need it to do crafts. So then you can then create trade routes and things like that. So I think that that's pretty interesting. I would like it if guilds decided to collaborate with each other, and maybe your guild has one whole zone or 2 or 3 zones that do specific things, and you're really good at that, and go deep on that. I don't want for us as developers to tell you where to build. I'd rather make it evident where the good places are just by the terrain. But I think it would be great if you could modify these things to some degree, adjusting the elevation so you can put a nice level building here, or maybe you can't build here until you've cleared off the rocks and stuff, and you realize it's at a slope, so then you have to kind of adjust it. So there will be places that are too small for buildings, a long path somewhere. Someone could claim a chunk off of that long path that otherwise is way too narrow, but still has some usable farmland, or you can grow something there that, you find useful. So I would hope that people would find value in various places, and, things that you own, people can't mess with. So there's a permissioning system we have to build for land too. But yeah, there's a lot to consider there.
Let's roll the backpack video.
Sometimes I think Maxie's just being evil. So he put this tightrope across the entire level that gets you into the very top of where you get the fish sword. And I can almost never do it. But it's just a really beautiful view from on that tightrope. And yeah, so there's a lot of nice assets in here, and he's laid them out very attractively, so you can kind of wander around a little bit and see all the pretty things that he's laid out. And in here we have a backpack, so you can actually, what's pretty great about the way that our equipment system works is that I have a small belt and a backpack right now. I'm not currently wearing my backpack because my back is currently empty. So if I put the backpack on, now I get all these extra slots. So it's pretty amazing how flexible and powerful this system is. And there's actually a nice UI coming for that.
Grill.
Yeah, more of what we were talking about earlier, like this infinite combinations and flexibility with that system. And I really, really like that.
Yeah, I'm excited about having so much variety, because when a player has the ability to express themselves and customize their character and their appearance, then I think that that's more interesting than having a good-looking character that everybody has.
Yeah, it also opens up opportunities for people to really specialize in things, where if somebody needs something specific, there's not going to be maybe a ton of people who can do that.
Exactly.
This was my favorite video artistically. Loved all the trees, the colors, the different sizes, the waterfall. I mean, it's just beautiful. And of course it'll get better over time, but I really love the direction. And of course the huge castle was pretty cool as well. So any comments on that huge castle? Is that something you guys see people building? And I guess on the building side, do you see kind of unlimited creativity where people can just almost like Legos put stuff together? Or again, are you going to be more on the blueprint side where, okay, here's a blueprint and then you need the raw materials to build it?
I think it's more interesting when you can Lego stuff together. I find that's pretty challenging to make it completely flexible. Like a lot of the builder games let you put walls anywhere, put floors anywhere, windows anywhere, that kind of thing. I don't think we have the manpower to do that right now. Man, I'd love to change that. But I think it's fascinating to see all the games that are doing, like there's a game right now called Tiny Glade that all you do is build. Like that's the whole thing, is just moving things around and aesthetically creating a little castle, and it's beautiful. There's no game there. I mean, it's a cozy game, so you're just kind of building stuff because you want to. So you can go infinitely deep on those. I think what we're probably going to do for now, at least, is you'll start with a pretty basic, like maybe it may not even be a whole building so much as like a tented area or something. But as you upgrade your place, it's going to look a little bit bigger and a little bit nicer. And then I'd like it that we have some spaces where you can hook things, kind of the way that the character has equipment slots. You could have equipment slots on your building, and you could put things in those slots, which is sort of, okay, here's a corner of the building. I can put a gargoyle here, or I can, I'm gonna change the way that the window looks by adding an awning or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how deep we can go just with a fixed sort of system where here's a slot, and the slot has a kind of type, and you can get things that fit into that type. What's great is the equipment slot system is completely designer driven. So a designer can come in and build all that stuff, and it all just lives in a spreadsheet. So it doesn't require a tremendous amount of programming. It just means we have to add a mode where you can go and, like, I'm going to craft a thing, and then I'm going to plop it onto my building in a kind of easy to use way. So it wouldn't be hard. I don't know. We're probably not going to get to it right away, but I think that's the direction we're heading.
Grill, any final comments?
No, I like that kind of modular system. Like, unless you're going for something like Valheim or a survival game where, like, literally building everything and designing everything and placing everything however you want, being able to kind of plug and play or just plug things into place seems like it'd be nice without taking too much away from the actual game itself.
Yeah, I think it's fun to think about crafting all those items too. I mean, somebody's got to make it, and it might be you, but it might be somebody else. So, like, different, the crafting system we have designed is insanely deep, and I think it's uncommon, but it's basically like, here's a pattern of something, and it could be like, let's say it's an awning for a window, right? Here's an awning. Okay, well, there are so many different kinds of fabrics you could use. There are so many different kinds of dyes you could use. Like, all those kinds of things there are things that fit into a slot, and those slots exist as a crafting pattern. So you could make pretty much anything. And that means it's user generated content in a way. It's more user produced, user customized content. But yeah, I think that's really neat because it allows us to create a few patterns and then let you guys decide what you want to put there.
Yeah, you give people a pool to pick from, and then they kind of design things in a way where they can add their own twist or flavor and uniqueness to it instead of everything looking the same.
Exactly.
Love it. Let's roll video number 8.
I think we're on 7, right?
We just do 7? Or is that the backpack we just
That
rolled?
was about. I think we're on 7. Yeah.
Okay.
We're actually pretty happy about the performance so far. We have a lot of geometry in here, and you can really just kind of look around. As long as you don't have a 4K monitor, we haven't set up anything for that yet, but there's a lot. There's a lot here, and we're getting good frame rate, and so far things are looking pretty good.
Grill.
I mean, the bones for everything looks so good. Sure, there's not a ton of meat on right now, but it's also only 5-6 months into development. It's really impressive what you guys have done.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous amount of effort, and I don't want to say it's easy, because it's not easy. But I appreciate that people think that we're pulling a rabbit out of the hat. we're going as fast as we humanly can. And, you know, like I said, we have 3 engineers working on this, and some of these things are asset packs that we're putting things in, and will eventually probably change to the way that we want them to look. But having things in the world makes it feel alive, and having as much as we have is really Maxie's doing. Like he just went dark for 2 months and then produced the whole level with a tremendous amount of effort on his part. So I can't sing his praises enough.
Going dark for 2 months sounds like my World of Warcraft days.
That encampment looked awesome. You know, it's like it just feels like everything's alive, and like I said, all these little details make a big difference.
For sure.
All right, now we're ready for video number 8.
Nerd out with me for a second here. What I find really cool about this motion matching system that we're using is that as you watch this character, he's just kind of sliding a little bit. He's on a bit of a slope, and we haven't turned on enough friction yet. But as his hips move, his legs are adjusting. It's so unusual to see something this well behaved in a game. I just love it.
Grill?
Yeah, physics looks good. Characters are moving pretty well. They're still, running around. It's still not super smooth. And again, like I was saying, before the last video, you guys are so early in, and for things to even be this good already is kind of amazing. Like I didn't expect to have a playable game at this point for sure.
Yeah, there's a ton to do. Like the character pops around a little bit, but the camera is smooth. And they're in different update loops, and we can fix that. And so, I mean, I look at these things and I see like, okay, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And as a developer, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we're putting this out yet. But at the same time, not everybody's trained to see the deficiencies like I am. So I know how much work there's left. There's a ton, but I feel like we've done pretty good so far.
I feel like character movement specifically is one of the hardest things for games to get right. So many games just completely fail at that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I've been pretty happy with what we've got. I mean, Angel spent almost 2.5 months just working on that to get the animation in, and Maxie was animating the whole thing. And by getting that as close to right, I mean, it's not right, but as close to right as we can right now means we can move on. That's a solid first pass. There's plenty to work on other than that, but we're going to have to come back and fix a bunch of stuff.
Before we roll the best clip, I always save the best for last, of course. Anything you want to share around the current Mooncast fundraising, and maybe people can contact you if they want to learn more about any high level things you'd like to share?
Well, the big news is that we're looking for funding, and what I can say is that if you're excited about what we're doing and you've been following us for any period of time and you think you can help, this is a game that is driven by the community and is here to serve the community. And I hope that we're making the kind of game that you want. And if that's true and you feel like you can help us out, then reach out, because I'm all ears. We're in the middle of fundraising, and if things go well, then we have another, I hope, 6 months. And if things don't go well, then we mothball the project or something.
There you go. So what's your Discord handle if anybody wants to reach you that way, or what's your preferred way for people to
come to the if you go to discord.gg/mooncast, you can find me there. My Discord handle is jhughes2112.
Yeah, we'll post that in the description down below. All right, Grill, let's roll the final video.
Started with a simple dream, a world we'd never seen. Lines of code and caffeine nights, turning polygons into digital life. It's loading, it's growing. Every bite is worth the fight. It's going to turn out alright. It's alive, alive, alive. We're building a blockchain game you've never seen. When you play, I think you'll see what I mean. Through sleepless nights, our dedication shows. We're laying down the code. From night till morning glows. Every challenge is a stepping stone. We endure. Come on, let's break the mold. Make something blockchain game you've never seen. When you play, I think you'll see what I mean. Soon there'll be a fishing game, it's just begun. With rods and reels we'll cast beneath the sun. New adventures at every shore, we're so glad. Every click, every quest we design, a world where you and I can truly shine. It's alive, alive, alive. Although it's nowhere near done, it should be just enough to show it's alive, alive, alive.
Every bite is worth the fight. That was a good line.
The songs are great. Who's doing the songs for you?
I could tell you, but you'd be disappointed.
I have an idea, but
Well, the AI music creator tools are pretty cool. But I really like that dark moon building. There's a couple of variants. Those look awesome.
Oh yeah, those are going to be in every zone. Are the ones that Mooncast operates.
Nice.
yeah, those screenshots at the end of you all look great.
Yeah, those are pretty much in game the way that they are. I just took screenies. So
No, the game looks great. That's why.
thanks.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see everything that goes into this. Somebody who's only coded HTML over 20 years ago, and my drawing experience is MS Paint and stick figures. It's really incredible to see what goes on behind the scenes, especially somebody who's been involved in gaming for, I don't know, since Nintendo came out, whenever that was.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing that's funny is that you almost never get to see how bad it looks when programmers do it. I mean, it's normally you let it go through the art department before you put it out there. But this is where we are, you know.
I think that's one of the coolest things about Web3 is that we kind of get to look into kitchen. We get to see you guys cook and kind of build the menu and prepare and test things, and we get little bites. We kind of, before the restaurant actually opens up to the public, we're kind of privy to watching the magic get crafted and created. So yeah, I've always enjoyed that part of Web3, and you guys are doing a great job.
We'll try not to give you food poisoning if we can help it.
So far, so good. But yeah, just amazing work. I think you guys are breaking records in terms of the amount of work you guys are building, and especially factoring how small your team is. You guys are basically a skeleton crew building a massive MMORPG, which maybe has never been done before.
I don't want to say that we're doing it with only 4 or 5 people, but that's what it feels like. And we have a revolving cast of really great helpers that are in the shadows. So yeah, I feel really good about where we are right now. That's for sure.
Well, make sure you let us know in the comments and let Jason know what you liked, what you loved, if you've played the game. And by the way, it is playable. Jason, where can people go and what do people need to do to test drive the game?
Right now, all you need to do is go to mooncast.productions. It's on screen. That's actually a domain name, crazy, isn't it? So Mooncast Productions, and then if you click the watch live or the play button, it's kind of themed like a TV show, but it takes you to the download link, and you can just download it if you have Windows. And if you have any interest in playing, you have to have some Bodhi, so go get the Bodhi, and then switch over to base, and you can launch into the game and play it. It's pretty small. I mean, you'll play for a few hours and maybe see the whole map, and that's what it is. But I think it's a lot of fun so far. It's a lot of exploration, and more to come.
Love it. And of course, you will be back for milestone video number 4. We're going to continue covering Mooncast, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and go to join Mom just hit the Discord link down in the description. Go to mastersofmaterium.com, hit the Discord link there. Gorilla, any final comments for the masses, for the peeps?
Yeah, just keep on doing what you're doing. I think you guys keep progressing like this, and by next year, it's going to be something really impressive to play.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me on. I love doing these, and you know, I look forward to more mom members jumping in.
Yeah. And of course, there is a race happening, which, you know, everybody knows it and doesn't talk about it, but there is a race between Mooncast and another game starts with M. So we'll see who gets a full playable launch first, but I know where my money is. So anyways, thanks, Jason. A pleasure. And again, if you guys are interested in potentially investing in Mooncast, make sure to reach out to Jason. We'll drop the link in the descriptions below, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.